Oh, the rolling hills of New Zealand. Isn't it peaceful? Well, don't be fooled. Some of the biggest scraps happen right here in the sticks. Tonight on Neighbours at War, trouble in paradise. The Golden Bay neighbours scrapping over a water tank slightly over the boundary line.
I think we just have a different view about land and, having stringent boundaries or just being more loose because it is all, it is all connected and related.
I don't care what their philosophy is, as long as they don't try and impart it on us. They can, as long as they stay on their side of the boundary and keep off our land.
And heavy metal riffs are not welcome in Welcome Bay, Tauranga. Beautiful Pohara Beach in Golden Bay at the top of the South Island has long been a haven for holidaymakers and alternative lifestylers from New Zealand and all over the world. In summertime here it's great, but it's as dry as a wooden god. A lot of people round here have got water tanks to get them through the dry season. It's standard practice. And believe it or not, this humble water tank is the catalyst for a major dispute, because about this much of it is over the boundary. Let's meet the unfortunate owners of this extraordinary predicament, Ro and Joanna Paikarski. They moved here from Tucson, Arizona in December 1999, just before the new millennium, which dawned with the promise of a fresh new start for our hopeful immigrants in Golden Bay. But not for long.
Yeah, building these rock terraces, this whole slope side was continuous from here up on through past the boundary here. And it was grasses, shrubs, a bit of trees that were planted. And now what we have is a bare platform.
Scorched earth policy? That is not cool. What was this mysterious platform going to be used for?
One day a few months ago, I was in the kitchen doing my thing, and Ro came in and said, "Joanna, I feel sick." And I said, "What has happened?" And he said that there's now a sign up right there that says Pohara boarding kennels.
It was just for our viewing purpose, which is a bit strange.
Well, the sign was there yesterday, but when we just now came up here, we discovered that it isn't here right now, so we don't really know what that means.
Joanna, it means this dog and all his stupid mates could be moving in next door to you soon. But the possibility of doggies is different to the actuality of herbicide spraying right on the boundary when you're trying to grow organic fruit and veggies.
I noticed after the spray that the odor from the spray lingers on long, and I'm in the garden and I'm breathing it. I get a stuffy head, a weird feeling in the head. It's
probably some highly toxic chemical that isn't good to put into the ground, and it can't be good for our garden or for the food that we're trying to grow here, or for our health either. I sometimes have this little imaginary scenario that when I'm up picking tomatoes, that he'll come down with his backpack and I could just offer him some nice fresh tomatoes. I wouldn't want to make the point, well, here's a lovely fresh tomato, but it might have some spray residue on it. I wouldn't want to do that, but I mean that would be like a clear way for him to see what's happening.
It gets worse. Ro and Joanna ran a small plastic pipe up the stream that goes through their neighbour's property in order to gravity feed this little water tank to water their organic garden with. But the neighbours said, "Remove your pipe."
I think we just have a different view about land and having stringent boundaries or just being more loose because it is all, it is all connected and related.
In principle, maybe. In reality, no. Unfortunately for Ro and Joanna, their neighbours formalised the situation by surveying for a new boundary fence, all at their own cost. That's not so bad. But when the surveyor established the boundary line, there was a slight problem, as you're about to see.
This is the boundary marker and where the tank comes over a wee bit. Well, I came out here, saw the water tars, and I said, well, yeah, we have a bit of our tank over the boundary. And
But I still, you know, I still was thinking that it wasn't that big of a deal.
It was a big deal, but hold on to your sandals for a minute. Exactly how much of this water tank is over the boundary? About this much, about a square metre.
in the post, we get this, a letter from a lawyer that says that we need to remove the tank by the 31st of March.
So Ro and Joanna wrote back with some practical options to avoid the costly and pointless exercise of moving the water tank, like a boundary adjustment to swap land or some kind of minimal rental.
So the lawyer sent us a second letter and informing us that his client, our neighbor, had no other, didn't accept any of our options, and that we would have to pay a land use rental of $65 per calendar month, payable monthly in advance, with the first payment to be made on the 1st of May.
Hold on, man, those are Auckland prices, and there's still more.
It says, please note that you may not enter our client's property to carry out the requisite work.
For Ro and Joanna, the only possible reason for this persecution is this. The people who lived in their house previously told them it was okay to dump any garden rubbish in this tomo, or sinkhole, just a few metres over the boundary. Plus, Ro and Joanna stored a few items temporarily here, also over the boundary.
Living in the country made sense, you know, like if you have a place to just put something so that it decomposes and gets back into the land, that it makes sense. But now, because of the way everything looks, you know, you just don't want to just step over here because now we're on someone else's property. And to me, that's not like what the country's about. And it's obviously not only a property boundary, but a philosophical boundary.
Coming up after the break, let's go up the hill and discuss this essential difference of opinion with the neighbours.
They shouldn't be on my land, full stop. I would be quite happy for them to pack up and get back to Tucson, Arizona, as fast as they can go. We don't need this type of people in New Zealand.
Ro and Joanna Paikarski have got a problem. Not only are their neighbours spraying chemicals along the boundary by their organic garden, but they want Ro and Joanna to move their water tank, which is just over the boundary line. But there's a catch. Ro and Joanna are not allowed onto their neighbour's land to move it back. And until it's moved, they might have to pay $65 a month rental. The water tank was already there when Ro and Joanna bought the place, and their legal advice so far says that if it goes to court, they should win. But that will cost about the same as getting a new water tank anyway. Bummer. Up the top of the hill live neighbours Gary and Joanne Eckford. They've had their house and 2 hectares here for about 10 years, and like the Paikarskis, they love it here in Golden Bay. They agreed to tell their version of the story, so we decided to go through all the allegations and issues one by one on location. First of all, what about the scorched earth policy beside the Paikarskis' organic garden? We caught up with Gary in his garden.
Yes, I have been spraying along the boundary line and across the property, but the product I use is Interceptor, which sounds like an advertisement, but it's organic product. It's a New Zealand research product, and it's made from pine trees. And I've also planted 257 native trees on the property, and in the future there will be more planted down along the fence lines. And I understand by using an organic product that I'm being responsible, and I'm aware of the garden situation here, so this area is only sprayed with Interceptor.
Good on you, Gary, and that should be a relief to the Paikarskis, all right. Maybe there's some common ground here after all. But why remove the little water pipe from the stream?
For a start, it's our property, and the creek runs across our property. It would have been courteous of them to come and say, look, could we put a pipe in? But they didn't do that. And it's not a shared creek. Their creek is on their property, in our creek as on our property.
I don't think it would be organic. With the farm further up, we don't really know what goes into the creek, but...
Helicopter top dressing.
Top dressing and so on, but yes, I wouldn't be using it. They are well aware of the fact that they were trespassing on our property because they sent us a letter requesting easement rights through the stream after the fact. So they are well aware that they need to have permission.
Another thing we took issue with was the land over here, this area here. The Paikarskis were dumping all their trees, branches, greenery, and they also had their drums and wheelbarrow, etc. in this area. I rang the Paikarskis to ask them why they were dumping their rubbish on our property, and the reason was that the previous owners of the house was also doing that, so they thought it was all right.
OK, but what about the dirt platform here and the disturbing sign about the boarding kennels?
At one time we thought we might put some boarding kennels in here. We have a friend that does animal grooming, and we thought there might be something we could do together there. But that's on hold at the moment. We have some other options we're looking at as well. Now, this is our tomo here. A tomo is basically a sinkhole. It's about 40 metres from the boundary line, and from time to time we find vegetation from the Paikarskis gets dumped in this sinkhole. Would you walk onto your next door neighbour's property and dump stuff on their place? It's, I don't think it's right, and any Kiwi wouldn't think it was right. It's not a good idea to dump foliage and rubbish into a tomo. Now, a tomo is a sinkhole which goes down into the aquaplane and runs out probably down near the beach somewhere.
When we first had the digger in here clearing for the boundary line and the fence line, my first meeting with Mr. Paikarski was when he came over and approached me and said, "You're not building a road through here, are you?" And I responded, obviously, no, we were just clearing for the fence line. His next comment was, "Well, you're not going to cut down that tree," which I responded, "Do you mean the tree on our land?" And to that he just turned around and walked away. There was never an introduction. Mr. Paikarski never introduced himself as our neighbour, and since then he's never talked to me.
And here is another situation where the Paikarskis have crossed the boundary again. As you can see here, they've cleared our land. There's been about 20 metres of our property cleared, running down the bank here, and they've been growing flowers for their use on our property. I'm totally lost for words to understand why on so many occasions they're using our land without approval. And just down below us is the issue that we're here today for. And as you can see, the water tank, the concrete water tank from the Paikarskis is approximately 1/2 metre over the boundary and 2 metres long. People watching this program are probably saying, what's all the fuss about? And why am I wanting them to move the tank off our property? I guess it's the continuing problems of the pipe in the creek across our property, the dumping of rubbish at the front of our property, the dumping of vegetation in the tomo, the growing of flowers on our property. When do you draw the line and say enough is enough? And so we're putting the fence up, we're paying for the fence, and we want the tank moved off our property.
At the time of filming, Gary and Joanne had yet to hear from their neighbours about the proposed $65 a month rental.
We're not prepared to meet with them. I've had enough of their antics, and it will be dealt with by the lawyers.
Well, talking is always good, and once you stop talking, I guess there are not too many options. We'd love to at least have a first conversation, and since that's not possible, we'll wait and see, I guess.
Yeah, I'm really disappointed because I was looking forward to us all getting together and just having a, talk about everything, and we even had a little gift for everyone here. We just had a really good feeling that if they came down here, we could talk it over and it would just be really great.
We'll leave this one on the side, and who knows, maybe we'll be able to deliver that one to Gary and Joanne.
Coming up next, are these the neighbours from hell? We ride the lightning in Tauranga, where there doesn't seem to be justice for all, as garage days are revisited. Tauranga has the reputation of being a great big retirement village, let's be honest. But it's not, of course, it's just like anywhere else. And in the suburb of Welcome Bay, heavy metal riffs are not welcome. Just ask this guy. This is the Willis family. Michael's on guitar, Mum's on laundry, and Sol's on drums. Like so many New Zealanders, the Willises are a musical family. All types of music. They're into it.
Usually just play my original music. Been playing guitar for about 7, 8 years. Metallica, Iron Maiden, Black Sabbath, just all that kind of stuff.
I couldn't live without music. None of us could. Even as children, my sisters and that, we were brought up with music. I learnt to play the piano and guitar, and my sisters played other instruments, and we always had like sing-alongs around the piano and that at night, and it's the same sort of thing, except we've got it amplified.
They sure do, and that is the problem. You see, the neighbours just don't appreciate quality metal riffs. Like most neighbourhoods, reasonable quiet is at a premium. And since that party they had back at Christmas where they got the stereo confiscated, the Willises have had an incredible 35 noise complaints made against them, but only 4 of which were upheld. The Tauranga City Council stepped in and issued an abatement notice.
Abatement notice is just a formal requirement that's sort of backed up by the Resource Management Act, basically saying, pull your head in.
Oh, and what if you don't pull your head in?
If the abatement notice is breached, she'd be looking at a $750 fine plus a seizure of the equipment, which incurs a $250 fee to get that back.
Well, drums, of course, are the loudest, so Sol's drum kit had to go.
Well, we couldn't keep it at our house, so it's now at my sister's house. I only had it for about 2 weeks.
We've moved the stereo so that it's facing the hill rather than out there like it was. We keep that door closed all the time now because, the noise goes out there. The kids practice, 10, 15 minutes a day sometimes, not even that. We got rid of the drums. Michael got a small amp, tiny little amp that he practices on.
After taking all these precautions, Kim felt empowered to appeal the council's 6-month abatement period. But she was horrified to discover that 5 of her immediate neighbours signed a letter urging the council not to lift the abatement. Ooh.
We found that on the letter to the council there's actually 5 signatures. So we don't know who they are. We have a fair idea. We know one of them definitely, but don't know who the other ones are that are complaining.
Me and Kim went door knocking and went around to each person's house and just gave them our phone number to see if you got a problem, just give us a ring.
And no one ever has. They've just rung noise control again.
Paranoid is the title of Black Sabbath's 2nd studio album. And it's exactly how the Willises are feeling about all this. Now they're worried a simple power chord in A minor will invoke the council's fury.
It was complained about 3 weeks ago, I think it was. And I got the date from the council because they rang and told me there was a complaint. And I told him at that time that none of us were here, for that 3 days. We weren't here.
If there's any suggestion that there are vindictive calls, and there's certainly none here, then we would simply blacklist calls from that property.
But the Willises still feel pretty uneasy. We invited all the immediate neighbours to go on camera and give their version of events about the Willis family. Nobody would, but we were contacted by 3 separate households who informed us nothing sinister was going on. It was all nice and quiet now, and they hoped it could stay that way.
Told you.
So, what could be the real problem here?
The skulls at the front door and, the dream catchers and the type of music that comes out of the house for some of the neighbours, that will be off-putting.
As you can see around the house, I'm into American Indians. That's part of their culture, skulls. And the reason I've got them there is I think they're beautiful looking things. there's nothing wrong with them, and if that's what's upsetting them, I'm not about to move them.
They probably think we're evil with all the skulls going on, all the heavy music.
I just want to get along with my neighbours. I don't mind that they're not talking to me. It doesn't worry me. What does worry me is that they're having little meetings, secret meetings together. They obviously are, because they all got together to write the letters and that to the council. And I just wish they'd grow up. Wish they'd see our point of view. I mean, I've got teenagers. Their kids are going to be teenagers one day. And if they want to play music, then I don't know what's going to happen to those kids.
What goes around comes around. If the neighbours' kids do show an interest in music, well, they'll probably end up visiting Dominic here at the rock shop in Tauranga, where Michael, Sol and pretty much everyone else buy their instruments. Dominic's got a good angle on this story.
It's kind of ironic because we've got, my neighbour and I basically are able to, rock it up in his basement pretty easily. And we're talking, huge stacks. And we don't get any noise complaints at all. So a lot of it is the area that you're in. But it's good to have as well neighbours who can understand and, appreciate, even if they're not totally into the music, they can appreciate the fact that you're, especially the youth aren't out on the street, getting into stuff that maybe they shouldn't be, but rather, in their basements, in their rooms jamming away.
The law has to be changed where it's not so easy for people just to ring up whenever they feel like it and say they're making a noise. They should give children, people learning an instrument, 10, 15 minutes a day, They know it's not going to go on forever. They should be allowed to practice just once a day, 2, 3 times a week, It's not a big deal. If they set a time and tell the neighbours, like we have, that we'll be playing at a certain time for a certain length of time, then there shouldn't be a hassle.
Well, my advice to Sol and Michael would be to go over and meet the neighbours, tell them you're not weirdos, and just get their stamp of approval. Keep jamming up.